are listening to Castles and Cryptids, where the castles are haunted and the cryptids are cryptic as fuck.
Yeah.
You are listening to episode 19, Canuck Cryptids.
Yeah.
Or Canadian Cryptids, however you want to call it.
Yeah.
We don't mind. Canucks don't mind being called Canucks. But it is also the name of the Vancouver hockey team, so you gotta be careful. Because in Edmonton, we support the Oilers.
Yeah.
The Vancouver Canucks are Pat's second favorite Canadian team that he watches when the Oilers get ousted out of the playoffs.
Yeah. I think everybody has a backup if they like live in a city but they weren't like raised or born in that city. They're always like,
Oh, yeah.
this is my number one, this is my number two. And maybe they
Because
have
my
a
number
third.
one sucks.
Yeah. Maybe they have a number three. They have like a whole roster in order.
Well, there's a lot of Swedes usually on the Vancouver Canucks, so he liked that. If there's like Swedish guys, he's like, all right, the Sedins.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They're these twins with red hair. Could not tell them apart. Henrik and... Oh, Jesus, Daniel. God, I could not remember that. I'm sorry. That's my brother's name. Hi, Daniel! But no, we didn't have a hockey team in New Brunswick. Like, the furthest east you really have a team is what? Ottawa now. Would have been Toronto or Montreal.
Yeah.
When I was growing up. So when I met Pat in New Brunswick, and he was a fan of the Oilers because he'd lived in Edmonton before and is from the West Coast, I adopted that team.
Oh, okay.
And now I am in that city, so it works.
But like, does Saskatchewan even have a hockey team? Like, my dad's from Saskatchewan, my mom's from Manitoba. Both of them, I think Manitoba only recently got a hockey team for a while.
Oh, the Winnipeg Jets. They have the Jets, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
but
like,
Saskatchewan, no. They got the
Yeah.
Rough Riders for the
Yeah.
football.
That's all they need. They love the Rough Riders enough for...
So much.
Yeah.
And we can talk all the shit we want about Saskatchewan, by the way, because we don't have any Saskatchewan listeners. So, rag on them.
No, I won't. I've been to Saskatchewan a couple times. It's very nice.
It is. I know some good peeps from there, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, exactly. There was no hockey teams out east. We never got any damn concerts unless I was in Halifax, like, visiting my dad, because Halifax is the biggest city in Atlantic
Yeah.
Canada. So they would get stuff, but everything else would skip right over from Toronto or Montreal, skip over New Brunswick, wouldn't come there. They'd fly over or whatever. They don't come to PEI. Maybe they'll come to St. John's, Newfoundland, but I mean, that's another plane ride or a ferry, so...
Yeah.
That's often not on the concert list either.
No. Yeah, there's never too many, like, tour dates. There'll be, like, 10 tour dates in Canada, and then we're done, but there's, like, 45 in the US.
Yeah. We did Vancouver and Toronto.
Yeah. Nobody else lives anywhere else in Canada, right? We're gonna do 5 days in Canada and 9.5 months in America. And you're like, oh my god.
Actually, although something said that, like, because of where Toronto is on the latitude or whatever, that it's like Seattle is more northern, and because so many people live in like south central Ontario, I thought the fact that they presented was that like 65% of the population of Canada lives south of the latitude of Seattle, and I like picked up my globe at my desk and was like looking at it and was like, yeah, I suppose you're right. Yeah, that looks okay. Because, like, there's Toronto and Ottawa. And, like, I don't know. Is everybody living there? But, like, yeah, we all live very close to the border, usually. Edmonton's the farthest north I've ever lived in Canada.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Damn.
But
It get cold here.
yeah, it gets cold enough here. I don't want to live any more northern.
No,
but I
fuck no.
feel like our Canadian cryptids are going to take us all across Canada.
They are.
So-
That's how you bring me back on track.
Yeah. It's going to be... I'm excited for this episode. It's-
But that's probably why we have so many cryptids too, is because we have so many sparse areas without people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We just got a lot going on.
We're pretty big.
Yeah. We're a large country for the population we have.
Still second largest. Yeah, still only Russia, I think, tops us, right? Or I think so.
I think so.
Mm-hmm. So okay. Are you going to
Yeah.
lead us out of the gate, you said?
I think so, because I have something that in my research I came across and I hadn't heard of it and thought it was really funny, and I don't know if you heard of it. I feel like out of the two of us, the one of us that would have known about it before is you.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so this, I should have actually sent you pictures of this before, but you can feel free to, we'll pause it and you can Google it on your phone, because it's hilarious, in my opinion.
Oh,
So-
sounds like I'm on it.
Yeah, this, my source, I literally copied this word for word. I have a couple sources. My first section is literally 100% copyrighted. I just copied everything word for word because it's pretty much straight to the point. So it's just the
Fair
little
enough.
words, though. So my first source, this is from the Gizmodo.com website.
Gizmodo.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so, this says, designed by illustrator Emily Samstra for the Royal Canadian Mint, they actually released a limited series. I can't remember. Was it quarters? Hold on. Let me check my pictures.
Oh, probably quarters or toonies if it's a special issue. They're always so funky.
It's quarters.
Nice.
In 2011, they released 3 cryptid-themed Canadian, quarters.
No, really?
Yes.
I don't think I've seen them.
Okay.
Or if I did, I clearly did not pay it enough attention.
Yes.
The credit that it was due.
That's
I
what I'm
clearly did not give it.
So the first one they have is, which I chose to cover, is a serpentine cryptid called Memphre or Memphre.
Okay. I know. I always struggle when I read that one too. I'm like, is it Memphra or...
Yeah.
Yeah.
The pronunciation source I came across said Memphre, but on the website and the place that it lives in, Lake Memphremagog, it's pronounced Memphre, but the cryptid itself is Memphre. So I'm not sure.
When I see the R-E at the end, I'm like, oh, it's the French spelling because you'll see
Yeah.
centre spelled as center except R-E at the end. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, it's the French. Memphre.
Yeah.
No. Well, yeah, we'll know what you mean.
So this is exactly word for word what Gizmodo had, which was a source directly from the Royal Canadian Mint. This is how the Royal Canadian Mint describes it. Memphre's dragon-like head peers from the waves as its serpentine body propels it through the waters of Lake Memphremagog. The mountain in the background of the quarter picture echoes the rolling landscape of Quebec's eastern townships. Lake Memphremagog is located about 150 kilometers or 93 miles southeast of Montreal, a long, narrow lake that runs north-south across the border into Vermont. First Nations legends from the area speak of mysterious monsters lurking in the lake. Official records begin in 1816 reveal as many as 8 sightings per year, the majority of them confirmed by numerous independent eyewitness accounts. So that's what the Royal Canadian Mint had to say.
You know, I can't remember if I talked about him, if he's a lake monster. Because
I
there
couldn't
was...
remember either. I was going to check, but...
Well, it's funny because I think even the list that I pulled from, I noticed that it was only so complete and that there was many different lists everywhere it seemed I looked. I was like, well, don't have time to put them all in, I guess.
In my research, actually, it was really helpful. I found a map of the world that says it's called World of Cryptids, and it literally has one cryptid per country in cute little cartoony drawings, and it tells you the name of the cryptid and what country it's from. And it's a whole map of the world. So I was like, that's going to be helpful in our cryptid series.
Someone made that, and yet they can't make me a database of smells.
Yeah. The movie theaters are trying.
If you guys don't get that, it's because you haven't listened to the Patreon episode. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that was Patreon. Who knows at this point?
Yeah, I have a hard time like keeping track of what was on Patreon or not.
Definitely, but the short story is I want a database of smells, like a scratch and sniff internet.
Yeah.
Okay? That is all. I just want to be at like, what does patchouli smell like? Okay, thank you. Now I can go back to reading my book and I can start referencing patchouli again.
Yeah.
Smells like hippies? Okay.
So I have another thing about Memphis. This is from Memphis.com, again, copied directly verbatim, but this is to do with some sightings, because I didn't want to just have the blurb and then nothing else. So
Little copy and paste, little CNV.
So this is, feel free this entire next section until I talk about the other cryptid coins. This is all in quotes from Memphis.com. To date, more than 215 sightings have been reported and documented with great care. Each account is signed and recorded. Hearsay accounts are simply refused. There are on the average 8 sightings annually, which have been confirmed by about 20 witnesses. The first one they have listed is 1961, 2 fishermen heading for Newport. For about 40 seconds, a black creature about 20 feet long, swimming partially submerged. According to these men, the creature that was about 20 feet from their boat had a round back and an indescribable head. This scene was accompanied by a strange sound.
An indescribable head. I'm not even going to try and describe that head. It's indescribable. Give up.
Yeah. Words cannot describe. Like, it was round. Okay, great.
Looked like a dragon.
Yeah. The next one they have listed is July 1966. It says 4 persons witnessed its presence after observing it for more than a minute. According to them, the creature had several humps, was about 20 feet long, and swam about 50 yards between their boat and the shore. This sighting took place about 7 p.m. and is similar to one that took place at about 4 p.m., some 10 miles away, as observed by 3 other unrelated people.
Lots of sightings. Lots of humps, too.
Yeah.
Love a good many-humped monster. My humps, my humps, my humps. My lovely lady lumps.
Maybe that's what that song is about. It's about Memphis.
I was like, don't be ashamed.
We finally figured it out.
You don't have to hide anymore because of our terrible beauty standards. Show us your humps.
Yeah. The next one is just really small. It says the description of a 3-humped creature coincides with that of September 1994, given by 4 persons in 2 different boats. The weather was overcast, but the lake was calm, not a wave, no wind. They observed for at least 3 minutes from each of their 2 boats an object 40 to 50 feet long, a type of wave shaped like 3 humps and black in color. This adventure, it says this adventure ended for them when the creature swam under one of the boats and disappeared into the depths of the lake.
And like, because the water was so calm, that would be so freaky. Because when it's like that, it just, you know how it looks like glass? Like, you'll just see, like, the reflection, and it's just, like, unbroken. You'd be like, there's something in there.
This one was pretty cool. Rare are those who can boast having seen the phenomenon on more than one occasion. This is, however, the case of 2 Montrealers who, after a first sighting in May of 1995, saw the sea serpent again in August of the same year. Better yet, they were able to obtain a film clip which was used in a documentary on the Canada D channel the following October. I tried to Google what their video was, and I couldn't find it. unfortunately, which was quite surprising because it says it was used in a documentary. But the source on Memphis.com, it didn't say what the documentary was or the person's name.
It was pre-Netflix, so it must have only aired on that Canadian channel.
Yeah.
That's too bad, but yeah, not that unsurprising.
Yeah.
Because I only got like one little video when I was doing Lake Monsters, and it had been on a pretty recent newscast. Like it was on globalnews.ca or whatever, because it, was in the 2000s.
Oh, okay,
So,
that's fair.
Yeah.
So this bringing us back to Gizmodo.com and the Canadian Mint website, or I guess Gizmodo.com, and the blurb that Canada Mint had released. The second coin is, the pronunciation says it's Mishapeshu. Mishapishu?
Ooh,
Mishapishu.
bless you.
Yeah. Thank you. Mishapishu. So it says, quote, "Here's the rundown on this feline being via the Canadian Mint. For centuries..."
The Mint's got all the down low.
Right? That's why I thought this was so hilarious. I was like, oh my god. Of course, us in Canada, in Alberta specifically, when you have dinosaurs on your driver's license, and then you got freaking cryptids on our quarters, and we got plastic money.
But like, who's doing their research? Who is their cryptid research team for this?
I have no idea. And the quarters, the only pictures I could find of it also aren't like the real quarters. It's just really bad, looks like cartoony looking cryptids that they literally just like photoshopped onto a quarter. I couldn't find an actual picture of like the real quarter.
Oh.
It was all just like, here's like our, I don't know, maybe like a demo of what it could look like, and it looks really cheesy and just awful, but I couldn't find an actual picture of the quarter. Like,
yeah, like a mock-up of it. Yeah.
It looks,
because usually
horribly
they'll do
tacky.
they'll do a design in the, mostly just in the silver of the quarter. It's not
These
like
are
they'll
like
use a
full
whole bunch
color.
of different. Are
These are
they?
full in color. It looks like, I don't know, like a sticker. Like, just, that's why
I've
I'm
seen
like,
different color elements, when they do like
Yeah.
Olympic coins and stuff. So, that's too bad. I
Yeah.
want to see what they look like.
you should Google it. Google it right now. Look up the Canadian Mint cryptid quarter. And all
But
three
like,
will
you don't
probably
think
come
that's
up.
you don't think that's what they really ended up looking like, though, right?
I don't know, I could find like the booklets that they came in and came with like the information, but the quarters themselves just look like, they don't look real. It looks like a fake image that they created. Yeah, like I couldn't find a picture of an actual quarter like sitting on a table that this was released. It was just these pictures where it doesn't look real. Like,
Yeah, it
That's
does
why
look
it
like
almost-
it's
right?
like they're like, oh, here's what the quarters are gonna look like.
Yeah, you see them?
Yeah, it's this first one. I don't know what to describe it as. I thought it was a fox, but it has horns, so now I'm really confused.
Oh, we haven't talked about him yet. That's why. And then,
Okay.
yeah, but you get what I'm saying? Like, it just doesn't look like a real quarter, and these are the only pictures I could find. But, like, obviously, if the Canada Mint was talking about it,
Well-
it's something that really happened. It's not like a fake news thing, right?
No, but what aren't there sometimes those special edition ones that you could only buy at the post office that aren't to be used as real currency? Like
I
they're
think that's what these
oversized and
were.
stuff. Oh yeah.
Because they came with, like, booklet things.
Oh, I think
Yeah.
I see a Bigfoot one. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So cool.
That's why I'm like, oh my god, if Alana doesn't know about this, it's gonna be hilarious. 'Cause I'm
Okay,
like,
we need to find these and get
Right?
them for our 50th episode anniversary.
I was like, of course Canada had cryptid coins, and if we're talking about Canadian cryptids, I have to talk about these. As you had said, so Mishapishu is the one that looks like a cat with horns. So this is the lowdown that Gizmodo had from the Canadian Mint. It says, quote, For centuries, Ojibwe legends have described a mysterious creature lurking in the depths of Lake Superior. They call it Mishipishu, which means great lynx, to describe its wild cat shape. It has the head and paws of a giant cat, but is covered in scales and has dagger-like spikes running along its back and tail. This clever shapeshifter is also believed to swim in the waters of Lake Ontario and other Great Lakes in order to protect the precious copper found in the rocks throughout the region. Chances are you'll never be quick enough to spot it among the waves.
He's protecting the copper?
Yeah, there's actually, when I was researching it, when you look up Mishipishu, there's a bunch of other cryptids they say that the Ojibwe people believe protect a bunch of, like, copper and other precious metals in the water.
Oh.
Yeah.
And he's like a kitty that likes water.
Yeah. So this is from, what website was this? I just have Great Lakes Guide. So
Great Lakes Guide.
Yeah, Great
Watch
Lakes.
out for the undertow and the Mishipishu.
Okay, greatlakes.guide. And their little write-up about Mishipishu says a 1977 monster sighting gave us the first photographic evidence of the creature that lives in Lake Superior. Randy Braun was hiking in Porcupine Mountains Wilderness State Park in Michigan. I tried to find this video and I watched the video. It's useless. It's like, I don't know, a millimeter tall and a ripple in the water. It's a picture of nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That always is disappointing.
It says, as Randy looked out across the lake's choppy surface during his hike, he was astonished to see a bizarre figure rising out of the waves. At first, Randy wasn't sure what he was looking at, but as it came closer to the shore, he realized it was some kind of strange creature. The humps on the beast's back would rise and fall beneath the water in sequence, one surfacing after the other. So this is now on Great Lakes Guide, Randy Braun's quote. He's quoted as saying, "The now obviously living thing stopped maybe several hundred feet from me and began moving and weaving around large boulders that were in the water, and directly towards me. It was big and resembling an anaconda with the girth of a Volkswagen. Don't laugh, it wasn't funny."
But you have to. You said girth of a Volkswagen.
Yeah.
My anaconda don't want none if you ain't got buns, son.
If you ain't Mishipishu, son.
Nice.
So his quote continues, as it moved towards me, it slowed down considerably, but was making a noticeable wake. It was strangely quiet while it snaked towards me and stopped dead in the water right in front of me. It was big! Again. I steadied my camera on top of the rock and fired one picture but was afraid to move after that. The thing sat there for about 30 seconds with its huge horse-shaped head and large dark left eye staring at me. On the nose was a visible cat-like, or catfish-type whisker, maybe 2 feet in length and wiggling. That's the end of his quote. And then, as you said, when you discovered the pictures of them, there's also a Sasquatch coin that was released that's part of the series.
I'm still getting over this weird catfish-type cryptid creature.
Yeah, I did find an actual, cave picture that I don't know if is the Ojibwe, First Nations made, but I have a very hard to make out, cave picture they actually have of Mishipishu that's, in a cave somewhere. But it's quite old and, you can't see its head, but you can definitely see the spikes on the back and its tail. It's kind of cool.
In the picture? Whoa.
Yeah.
Creepy.
So that's all I have about the coins. So I'm happy you enjoyed that and didn't know about them, because I thought it was fun. Good on Canada for just not taking ourselves seriously all the time and being like, you know what we need? We need some cryptid quarters.
Well, what else can we put on them? We've put the queen on so many different pieces of money that it's just starting to look like everybody else's money.
So my next one, I don't have a whole lot on, and I kind of went back and forth about talking about this one at all, but I just liked the name of it. I thought it was hilarious, so I kept it in.
Oh
It's
God.
called The Tunnel Monster of Cabbage Town.
Cabbage Town?
Cabbage
I didn't even know
Town.
we had a Cabbage Town.
Well, Cabbage Town is in the city of Toronto.
Oh.
And
Oh, okay.
yeah, so
Weird.
in my research on it, it said that the city of Toronto was built over like many streams and waterways. And while it was like expanding, they started like building over these. And when they did that, they left the waterways and streams underground. And so this left an underground network beneath the city that's all connected to sewer systems and things like that.
Ew.
yeah.
I don't know. That's kind of creepy. I know some cities have like underground stuff going on, but
Yeah.
it's still creepy. Especially with sewers.
Yeah, like a sewer is connected to it. So Algonquin tribes, they spoke of man-like hairy creatures that lived in these rivers before they were built over by the city.
Ooh, and then we shuttered them underground and now they're
Yes.
mad.
Yeah. So I looked up the pronunciation of this. It said that it's the Meme Gwesi.
Okay.
Are small water spirits that live in rivers or on river banks. They're believed to generally be peaceful, but are told to steal, or even like legends had to that they would blow canoes astray if they weren't being respected.
Ooh, we don't want that.
No. Some Ojibwe traditions say that they can only be seen by children or their own like medicine people. Well, other traditions say that anybody can see them. It's also reported that they may help humans who give them gifts or even tobacco. That was kind of interesting.
Oh, get them hooked on that tobacco. No, I'm just kidding. Sometimes I just used it for like ceremonies, I think.
Yeah. They're said to be child-sized, covered in hair with a large head. They have strange voices that sound like the whine of a dragonfly. I don't know if that's like the whine of it like in flight.
Specific. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know. They don't have that annoying like ee like a mosquito.
Right?
You kind of just hear them go by and you're like, oh, look at him flapping his little wings. Like they're a
Yeah.
lot more peaceful sounding.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it meant by they sound like the whine of a dragonfly. Their faces are sometimes described as narrow. Other reports say that they have no nose. It's said that they were created from the bark of trees and that they carve symbols on rocks and carve small canoes out of stone for themselves, which I think is cute.
Ooh,
Um,
stone canoe sounds heavy.
yeah, doesn't sound like it would work, question mark.
Buddy made a canoe on this season of Alone that we're watching right now. If you ever watch that show where they have to like live out in the wilderness, like literally
no.
with like 10 things they're allowed to bring. It's usually on like Vancouver Island in British Columbia. And yeah, there's definitely like people come close contact with bears and like
Oh wow, that
Or
would be
sometimes people are-
scary.
yeah, or they're sometimes just told to tap out because they've lost too much weight or like but whoever stays out there the longest wins. It's really crazy. I love it.
Oh, maybe I've heard of it like in general before.
I'm surprised people really wanted to do it, considering after the pandemic, everybody had pretty much quarantined as
Yeah.
much as they wanted
Enough.
to. But yeah, there's still the money prize though. So,
Yeah.
and sadly, I've never seen a Sasquatch yet on it. But
Okay.
then
Keep
again, they're
us posted.
nocturnal. Yeah, then they don't like these people aren't around out with their little cameras filming themselves at night. They're trying to sleep.
Yeah. So my last little bit, the Meme Gwesi come from the Ojibwe word for hairy mame, or the word for butterfly, which is Memengwa.
It's either hairy
Oh,
or
that's
something or
that's
butterfly.
like No, that's like the origin of the word Meme
Ooh.
either comes from hairy mame,
Mm-hmm.
or their word for butterfly, which is Meimengua.
Oh, weird. Okay.
So
It's like,
so the sighting, that was like the little black background. So the tunnel monster, specifically of Cabbagetown, is a reference to a 1978 newspaper reported sighting. This is all the information I could get. It's an article that was talking about it. Not like the original article. This was like a follow-up article about the 1978 sighting. And between the two sources, like, this is literally all the information that can be found on the internet about it.
oh,
Yeah.
so not as many sightings as some of those
No,
lake
this is
guys.
like literally the only sighting. So it says a monkey-like creature was sighted living in one of the underground tunnels in August of 1978. Toronto man Ernest was 51 when he and his wife of 19 years went into the tunnels searching for a missing kitten from their litter that they were raising.
Oh, but,
Yeah.
but that's so dangerous.
Right? In his search, he came to an opening that was like a dark cave by their apartment, and he crawled about 10 feet inside. This is where he said, quote, "I saw a living nightmare that I'll never forget," end quote.
Ew.
That
was me earlier when I drove by and my neighbor was watering his front lawn in his underwear.
Ew!
Ugh, right?
What the hell?
I almost crashed my car.
Ugh. Is it just like, the pasty white skin is blinding?
I was like, that man looks like he's got no pants on, Rain. That man's got no pants on, Rain. Oh, glad you didn't see. Look away. No,
Yeah.
and it was like tighty whities or whatever. It was
Ew.
not boxers. And I was like, you are an old man.
I do
But
not
other than that, our
consent.
neighborhood's beautiful. What's that?
I do not consent.
No. Remind me of the time me and Rain you could do a volunteer swap day if you remember at working at AMA.
Yeah.
And we did food or Meals on Wheels, and the one guy answered it in like it was an adult diaper. There's no other way to
Aw.
say it. Poor guy.
Yeah.
I know.
Just
It's
put
like,
on a robe.
and
Something.
Rain, I had a lot of elderly relatives growing up that we had to go visit, but Rain hasn't had as much of that joy in her life. So she was like,
Saggy old
whoa.
people.
But yeah, anyway, sorry, that tangent took a turn.
So back to the living nightmare that Ernest. Apparently, he only ever gave his first name. That's why it's hard to find information about this. So
It's the Ernest that's in all those movies. Ernest.
Yes.
Home.
So Ernest went into the tunnel with only a flashlight, and he saw a strange creature. He said it was long and thin and looked like a monkey. It was about 3 feet long and had large teeth. He said it weighed about 30 pounds with like slate gray fur. And its eyes
Ooh.
were a striking orange-red color, and that they were slanted. I assume like a reptile's or like a cat's.
Almost sounds like a chupacabra.
Yeah. In the pictures that they have of the sketch of like what he described, it really just looks like a monkey. With glowing eyes.
Maybe there's some evil monkeys escaped from, I don't know, the Toronto Zoo?
Maybe.
I think I could come across a monkey creature too. I don't know. We'll find out in my notes if I do or do not talk about him.
Okay. But this monkey creature, whatever it was, it could talk, and it told him, go away, in a hissing voice before...
Oh!
Yeah, that's so creepy.
Go away. Yeah. My precious. Or speaking parcel tongue. Hiya, Sava Sireth. No.
Yeah. Oh my
That's the
god.
best parcel tongue I can remember.
That was very good.
Thank you.
So it
Oh,
told
God.
him, go away, in a hissing voice before it bolted down the tunnel down like a tunnel, kind of like an offshoot down at the side. And
Okay.
Ernest obviously just like bolted and ran out of the tunnel as fast as he could.
He up and dusted.
Yeah. Just like his silhouette is left hovering in the air for a couple seconds and he's like already gone.
I know my mom will be like, see that flash? That's me.
Yeah. So he never went public, as he thought people would think he was crazy or even a drunk, until actually like a relative of his mentioned his story to a Toronto newspaper. And the newspaper ended up contacting him. Obviously, probably the relative gave his contact information to the newspaper, so the newspaper contacted Ernest, and he only agreed as long as they didn't print, or he agreed as long as they only agreed to, like, print just his first name.
So was the wife not down in the tunnels with him?
No, I think she
Okay.
was probably at, like, the opening.
I see.
But she does say, quote, I believe Ernest saw exactly what he says he did. His wife's name is Barbara. She goes on saying he was terrified when he came back to the apartment, and he doesn't scare easily. Look, he's been known to have a drink in the past, like most people, and to occasionally tie one on, but he's not a drunk, and he wasn't drinking at all that day. End quote.
She was like, Ernest, get you down to those, what is it, sewers and look for that cat.
Yeah.
And then he come home and he was like, I really didn't want to do it anymore, honey.
I done saw a monkey. Like,
He's just faking it so he doesn't have to do it anymore. No.
The Toronto Sun did question, at the time, I think this is in reference to the first article, the Toronto Sun did question some of Ernest's relatives and neighborhood acquaintances, and they found that every single one of those people agreed with and supported Barbara's evaluation of her husband. So he's not, like, known to, like, drink heavily or do drugs or be that kind of person, I guess.
Well, I suppose if there's no reason for people to be going down there, then that could be why there's less sightings.
Yeah. In March of 1979, so this would be about when was that? August? Yeah, August 1978 to March 1979, Ernest went back to the tunnel with the newspaper staff. So this is in reference to the original article they wrote. It says they reported the entrance was located at the bottom of a narrow passageway between two buildings. When Ernest and the reporters went back to the tunnel opening, they actually discovered the body of a cat near the entrance, and that reminded Ernest of animal sounds that he says he had heard from the tunnel before his experience. So there's probably a lot of stray animals that would be in this tunnel.
No!
But not necessarily
Okay.
stray monkeys that can talk.
What the fuck is going on down there?
The entrance in the article was believed to be used by the creature to get to the surface, to get, like, food and stuff like that. And Ernest's story was very strange. However, sewage employees, when they heard about this, they did not ridicule or scoff at it, according to the report made by the Toronto Sun at the time. One worker who was quoted in the paper in the original article said, quote, people who work on the surface just don't know what it's like down there. It's a whole different world. Who would have thought a few years ago that people would live in sewers? And yet that's what they found in New York a few years back. Another was quoted as saying, I don't know what he, Ernest, saw down there. I'll tell you one thing. If we could go in there, I sure as hell wouldn't want to go down alone. Yeah. My last little bit about the tunnel monster of Cabbage Town.
Yeah, the freaking tunnel monster.
Yeah, it's so this is how they left it off in the article, the follow-up article that they did. It says it's likely we'll never know what really happened. When the story was originally reported by the Sun, the entrance to the tunnel had already been blocked off by collapsing concrete. The reporter no longer remembers where the opening was, and with only a 34-year-old newspaper story to go on, the location is virtually impossible to find now. Yeah.
Well, that stops us then.
Yeah, we won't find the monster of Cabbage Town. If you go onto our website, I do have a picture of the original article called The Tunnel Monster of Cabbage Town. They have a picture of the entrance to the tunnel in question, and then they have an artist's rendering of cave quote-unquote creatures.
Ooh.
And the top above the Tunnel Monster of Cabbage Town, it says, almost like monkey, eyes orange, comma, red.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Well, we have a plethora of Ontario listeners.
Yeah.
Pretty much has overtaken our Alberta listenership. So maybe Ontario listeners, hit us up on social media. Have you heard of him? Have you seen him?
Yeah, but please
want to
don't try
know.
and find him. Don't go into the dangerous tunnels yourself, please. That's not what we're asking you to do.
No.
Like, if you have a sighting that or know any more information about Ernest's story, you could include
Call
that.
Crime Stoppers. No.
You could include that in a listener story and send it to us. That would be very cool.
I know. We're dying for some listener stories.
Yeah.
Yes. I want them. All the tea. Give me all the tea.
Yeah.
Because I don't have very many cool listener stories, but...
No, I have
or
nothing.
Listener stories. Jesus.
Hosting stories.
If you guys will tell me some of your creepy stories, then I might have one or two that I could share.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
I have one more.
Oh.
Well, actually, so when I originally did it, the stuff about the coins, I only had the Canada Mint stuff, so it was literally like paragraph, mint, tunnel, monster of Cabbage Town, and then went into the other one, and I decided I wanted to do, like, flesh it out and kind of do some of the sightings. So, originally this was a little shorter, but my last one, I don't remember if I had told you when we went to do the first Cryptids episode, that I think I had mentioned I had started research on my favorite cryptid of all time, and then when we decided to do water cryptids, I couldn't do it. I don't know if I had told you that.
I think so, but I don't remember what it is.
So, you will know. You probably know a lot about it because it's a very, very popular one. But I was happy to find out it's actually one of the largest ones in Canada.
What?
Not just in Canada, but it's definitely a big thing in Canada. And it actually was featured in one, and how I heard about it, one of the very first episodes of Supernatural. Can you guess what it is?
Oh, the Wendigo.
Yes.
Or how I... Oh.
Alana wins. So
that's a good one.
The second episode of Supernatural ever produced is about the
It
Wendigo.
is. Okay, I will admit, yes, I did admit that I did write a little bit on him because I was like, I don't know if we're gonna talk about him, but if we do, then this is what I like
feel
about
like
him.
you have to. But the Wendigo is my all-time hands-down favorite cryptid.
Oh, cool.
yes.
I think he's cool too, but I also, I don't know if I say it. I always say Wendigo, but everybody else seems to say Wendigo, and then I'm like, I don't know anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take your pick. Tomato, tomato.
Exactly.
GIF, GIF. Wendigo, Wendigo.
The French-Canadian pronunciation is Wendigo. No. Just kidding. Oh, yes, he's cool.
Yeah.
I agree. Good favorite.
Yeah. So, the Wendigo. It's a creature or evil spirit. It originates from folklore of First Nations in and around the East Coast forests of Canada, as well as the Great Plains and Great Lakes regions of the USA. And
He gets around.
yeah, it's said to be a malevolent spirit, often depicted as a creature with human-like features and possesses human beings. It invokes feelings of greed or hunger and the desire to eat other humans or commit murder.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I read too. Is like they definitely prey on you if you're hungry and things like that. And
so this is like by far my deepest dive I did. So we're gonna cover like everything you could want to know about a Wendigo. Basil H. Johnson, an Ojibwe teacher and scholar from Ontario, this is her description of a Wendigo. It says, quote, "The Wendigo was gaunt to the point of emaciation."
Yep, he's real skinny.
Yeah. Its desiccated skin pulled tightly over its bones, with its bones pushing out against its skin. Its complexion the ash gray of death, and its eyes pushed back into their sockets. The Wendigo looked like a gaunt skeleton recently disinterred from the grave. What lips it had were tattered and bloody, unclean and suffering from separation of the flesh. The Wendigo gave off a strange and eerie odor of decay and decomposition, of death and corruption, end quote. Oh, what a description.
He's like, you get up out of bed after a 3-day bender and you haven't eaten anything.
Your lips are chapped.
And you hungry. You so hungry.
Describing everybody during the first lockdown. We haven't showered in a long time. Our lips are chapped. We hungry. We're just like,
we were not gaunt. We were eating all the time, though.
Yeah.
Oh, that was probably part of it.
Yeah.
Consume the flesh.
Yeah, it's actually like surprising. So my first little part is actually about like the First Nations interpretation of what a Wendigo is, because they have their own beliefs about it that's kind of different than how it's portrayed in some like media and movies and stuff.
Yeah, from what I come across, it's the different tribes and stuff.
Yeah.
I think probably did lead to some different lore throughout the ages. Because, I kind of was like, some believe this and some believe this, but a whole bunch of different, like, tribes have reported seeing it. And, like, like you said, pretty much all over continental U.S. and Canada. Mm-hmm.
So, for First Nations, they represent the Wendigo as a giant humanoid with a heart of ice. A foul stench or sudden unseasonable chill will alert its presence. The depiction of a human or beast hybrid with antlers or horns does not fit into the original First Nations stories.
Okay.
The word Wendigo has many forms in most First Nations languages, part of traditional belief system of a number of Algonquin peoples. Mostly view them as malevolent, cannibalistic, supernatural beings. They are also strongly associated to winter, coldness, famine, and starvation. Right.
That makes sense too, I think, because it's like, if they're gonna, like, I don't know, they seem to have so much to do with hunger and, like, hungry people, and like, when you're hungry and desperate, they're gonna get to you because then you'll do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some traditions and cultures say that whenever a Wendigo ate another person, it would grow in proportion to the meal it had just eaten, so it would never be full or satisfied.
Isn't that gross, though?
Right? Oh. Therefore, Wendigos are portrayed as simultaneously gluttonous and extremely thin due to starvation. A Wendigo...
It's like, either they're getting bigger and bigger, or they're super thin always.
Well, it seems like it means, like, that they grow in, like, height and, like, bone structure, but their skin, they're still just gonna be skin and bone, but, like, their bones is, I guess, what they mean is growing?
I don't know. I just assumed it was kind of a little bit of two different branches of lore. Yeah. I don't know.
It goes on to say a Wendigo has a human's powers of cognition or speech, and in some depictions can speak with its prospective victims or even threaten or taunt them, which I think is what was happening in the Supernatural episode, from what I remember.
I don't know, I haven't rewatched it, but probably. It's gross if they can do that thing where they, like, pretend to be your friend, and so they're like, Kelsey, it's Alana, I need help.
Yeah, that's what they do in the Supernatural episode. It's so creepy.
Yeah, that's gross.
So, a folklore story collected in the early 20th century by Lottie Chicogaqua Marsden, an ethnographer of the Chippewas of Rama First Nation, in which a Wendigo also exhibits tool use, an ability to survive partial dismemberment, and auto-cannibalism, reads. This is going to be super gross. Are you ready?
Yeah.
We're talking about Wendigos, so...
You had me at auto-cannibalism.
Yeah.
I was like, alright.
So this is their story.
Have a drink. No.
It says, one time, long ago, a big Wendigo stole an Indian boy, but the boy was too thin, so the Wendigo didn't eat him up right away, but he traveled with the Indian boy waiting for him till he'd get fat. The Wendigo had a knife, and he'd cut the boy on the hand to see if he was fat enough to eat, but the boy didn't get fat. They traveled too much. One day they came to an Indian village. The Wendigo sent the boy to the Indian village to get him something for him to eat. He just gave the boy so much time to go there and back. The boy told the Indians that the Wendigo was near them and showed them his hand where the Wendigo had cut him to see if he was fat enough to eat. They heard the Wendigo calling the boy. He said to the boy, "Hurry up. Don't tell lies to those Indians." All of these Indians went to where the Wendigo was and cut off his legs. They went back again to see if he was dead, but he wasn't dead. He was eating the juice, in brackets, marrow, from the inside of his bones of his legs that had been cut off. The Indians asked the Wendigo if there was any fat on them, and he said, "You bet there is. I have eaten lots of Indians. No wonder they are fat." The Indians then killed him and cut him to pieces. The end of this giant Wendigo. End quote.
Oh, he's like the witch in the Hansel and Gretel. Although he's stupid because like your hands don't get fat.
Right?
But everything
okay,
else
so you
does.
got the same thing as me. I was like, how is he testing fat on your hand?
Like
I didn't
I'm like,
understand it.
yeah, cut my cheek, cut my double chin, cut my like muffin top spare tire. Like, you know,
Yeah.
this is where the fat gathers.
Cut the boniest part of my body, my hand. Like,
I'm gonna get tattooed on my hand first thing.
cut my forehead. Oh, that's skull. There's no fat in my forehead. Yeah.
You're too skinny. That was messed up.
It's so gross. There's worse descriptions.
Blech.
According to scholar Caitlin Elm, who is Tall Cree, when she was young, she was told Wendigos were so famished that they would eat their own lips so they would look like they're burying their teeth, which just disgusted me. Oh.
They should be part of the black metal bands.
Yeah. Oh my god.
We're so emo.
Once a Wendigo has tasted human flesh, there is no going back. So I have a little bit just about like cannibalism. So in some traditions,
It's about time.
yeah, we're just, as I said, there's like a few like little sections. We're gonna cover it all basically.
No, yeah, it comes up like when you research them, for sure.
In some traditions, humans are overpowered by greed, and this overpowering of like greed and the pursuit of wealth and material objects in some traditions and like First Nations groups is believed that can turn people into Wendigos. This myth served as a method of encouraging cooperation and moderation. Well, other sources say that Wendigos are created when a human is resorting to cannibalism to survive. Among the Assiniboine, the Cree, and the Ojibwe, a satirical ceremonial dance is sometimes performed during times of famine to reinforce the seriousness of the Wendigo taboo, which is kind of interesting.
No, and it is kind of, I think, a common thing for a lot of folklore and like, you know, things that are supposedly going to bring you bad luck and curses are things that are like more like tales like, oh, don't break a mirror, it's bad luck, because like mirrors were expensive and people didn't want them to be broken. So like it kind of tracks that it's like, just be careful, don't be greedy or like weak or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So my next little section is there's actually a modern psychiatry term that recognizes a form of psychosis that they have coined as Wendigo psychosis. So this is an actual psychiatric explanation.
I'm excited. If you weren't going to talk about it, I was.
Okay. Yeah.
I hadn't heard of it either.
Yeah. I was like, are you kidding me? There's actually a modern, not even like 100 years ago, a modern psychiatric recognition of Wendigos. It was crazy.
Obviously, like, they liked the name and they wanted to use it in their description.
So the symptoms include an intense craving for human flesh, along, strangely enough, with an intense fear of becoming a cannibal. And it's considered a culture-bound syndrome. I should have looked up what that kind of meant. I'm not quite sure what a culture-bound syndrome means.
Culture bound.
Maybe it's more like it's a taboo. So people both like fantasize about it, these people, but they're also aware that it's like taboo and that they shouldn't do it, and that kind of feeds into it.
Okay. Yeah, probably. I don't know. I don't understand in that context either.
Yeah. In First Nations stories, excessive greed and the destruction of the environment are considered symptoms of Wendigo psychosis. Treatment for Wendigo psychosis in some Cree folklore are, strangely enough, the eating of fatty animal meats or drinking animal grease. That sounds awful. Those treated might vomit ice as part of the curing process.
What? How? Okay.
I think that goes back, so that's like the Cree prescription is like you're drinking animal grease and you might vomit ice. That kind of ties back to when I mentioned that their belief is that a Wendigo has the heart of ice.
Yes, I had heard of that, and that's somehow how you have to kill them in some beliefs
Yeah.
is to burn the heart or something.
Yeah. Back to kind of more like a clinical look at it. The 10th revision of the International Statistical Classification of Diseases and Related Health Problems, or the ICD, classifies Wendigo as a culture-specific disorder, describing it as, quote, rare, historic accounts of cannibalistic obsession. Symptoms include depression, homicidal or suicidal thoughts, and a delusional, compulsive wish to eat human flesh. Some controversial new studies question the syndrome's legitimacy, claiming cases were actually a product of hostile accusations invented to justify the victim's ostracism or execution. End quote. Obviously, people probably throughout hundreds of years have been wrongly convicted, probably especially First Nations people, by like Europeans and everything that were coming to North America at the time. Just to acknowledge that they were probably hundreds of people wrongly accused of being like Wendigos and things like that and executed.
Yeah, I have a little story about that I can talk about when you're done your segment.
Okay.
Or when you're done your Wendigo part.
Yeah, I have two little ones that aren't super long. The first one is from Alberta and is probably one of the most famous actual like Wendigo cases, and his name is Swift Runner. So it's a very famous case of Wendigo psychosis, and he is a Plains Cree trapper from Alberta. During the winter of 1878, his family was starving and his oldest son died. Their family lived 25 miles from food at the Hudson's Bay Company post. It's said that he butchered and ate his wife and their 5 other children. And the thing is because his family was so close to food at the Hudson's Bay Company post, that this case is not classified as pure cannibalism as a way to avoid starvation, because they were close to a food source that would have provided them food had they actually been starving.
So the dad just killed
Yes.
basically the whole family before they were starving?
Yeah. He
Ugh,
killed
sounds
them
more
and
like
ate
family
them.
annihilation.
Yeah. He eventually confessed. He was in fact executed on December 20th, 1879 by authorities in Fort Saskatchewan.
Ooh. That's right by Edmonton.
Yeah. And my next little thing, this one's a little bit longer, is in Fort Kent.
Don't know where that is.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. So Thomas Burton was a young doctor that arrived in Fort Kent from England in 1921.
Tom Burton? Sorry, just kidding. But it's close.
Yeah, Tom.
Tom, Tim.
So he arrived to Fort Kent from England in 1921 when it was just a small colony. Burton came to Fort Kent with his wife to treat an outbreak of smallpox in the community. Initially, the young doctor was successful in fighting the disease, and the townsfolk embraced him and his wife as miracle workers. But the disease's spread suddenly became uncontrollable, and Burton became overwhelmed with the sick and dying. Obviously, they're helping out and everything, they're exposed to it a lot, and it wasn't long before his wife too fell ill, and she ended up dying from the sickness, and Burton himself actually locked himself away in their house with her dead body.
Oh.
Yeah.
You would think she wouldn't get it, being if she was a European settler. If I get that right.
Oh, that's true. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
Because they
I
brought
know.
it, right?
Most, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't even notice that. Yeah, that is very interesting.
Hmm.
So it said in the following days, Burton went mad with grief, and according to legend, he was possessed by the Wendigo. Under the evil spirit's influence, he ate his wife's flesh. And when he was done with her, Burton turned his attention to the residents of Fort Kent, and allegedly went on a killing spree for the next 3 days, with very few spared. And this is said to be some of the grisliest murders in Canadian history.
Wow.
My last little bit about this is at the end of the 3rd day, it is said that Burton disappeared into the woods around Fort Kent and was never seen or heard from again. When he and his wife had arrived, there were 150 people in Fort Kent. 11 were all that remained, at least according to the legend. So that is brutal. Like, he possibly killed 139 people.
But he didn't eat them all, so it's like, yeah, how is he a Wendigo?
I think it's a bit about his wife.
Yeah.
So today the community we know as Fort Kent no longer sits at the location Burton's terrible murders were committed, but residents sometimes report strange cries resembling that of a coyote coming from the tree line, and children are warned not to be in the fields too long past dark, lest they be taken by the Wendigo.
Oh, don't! Chills.
And that's my Canadian cryptids.
Ooh,
I had so much fun. This was such a fun thing, and I'm so happy I got to cover the Wendigo.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it, like, my fascination with, like, Wendigos probably ties back to my fascination with certain true crime cases. So I think I've told you about her before. Shout out to, it's not necessarily a podcast, though she does have a podcast now. She does, called Dark History, I believe. Her name is Bailey Sarian. She's a YouTuber. And she does Murder Mystery Makeup Monday. So she does, like, beautiful, like, makeup works while she tells you a true crime story. She's hilarious. She's so funny. And she said she's had kind of a lifelong fascination and always finds, like, the true crime stories that are about, like, cannibalism most interesting because it seems so taboo, and you'd be, I guess that seems like the craziest thing, especially when you're looking at, like, so much true crime. You're like, yeah, you can murder people in a bunch of different ways, but to go one step further and, like, consume that person
just up there like with necrophilia.
Yeah. It's like a possession of the person even more so. It's like a whole nother level. So
that's
I think
right.
My obsession with, like, Wendigos and them being my favorite cryptid maybe ties back to, I also too find that, like, the cannibal cases are some of the most interesting, because you sit there and you just scratch your head and you're like, well, fucking why? They'll be like, yeah, their lungs were found and they were marinating, and they found their thigh bone, like, wrapped up like a tenderloin with some peas and carrots in a casserole dish, and you're like, well, why the fuck they do that? Like, it just... Right?
It does tend to stick with you, especially the ones that are just like, and I just killed my girlfriend and did that. It wasn't even like I was a serial killer. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm like, I feel like that's maybe why Wendigos are my favorite, because it kind of ties into that, being like, well, just why the fuck? Like...
I know you have mentioned her, and
Yeah.
I also think my friend and hairstylist Heather did too, who also has been listening. Hi Heather, if you made it here.
She's really good.
Yeah, maybe I don't know if there's more than one that does true crime and makeup on there. If there is, perhaps it's a different person, but if not, then it's the same person.
Yeah, she's
and I
very
really
funny.
should check it out.
I love her. And I like that there's, like, a visual aspect too, and even though I'm not super interested in makeup, just sitting there watching her, and she's, like, doing this, like, fucking amazing eyeshadow and, like, putting on, like, doing some, like, winged liner, or doing this, like, outrageous, like, blood red lipstick, and she's like, and then he hacked her to death, and she's like, hold on, I gotta, like, pencil my lips, and then it just, like, cuts to and all her lip gloss is on, she's like, sorry.
So she's not even, like, having to consult a, like, script or anything? It's like, how do you multitask like that?
So she has, like, She has a mirror set up that she can see, and she has herself framed. It's pretty much just like a shoulders up headshot of her super zoomed in on the screen, and she has like a computer and her mic in front of her that you can't see.
Okay.
But you'll see her every once in a while. She'll be like, oh shit, I lost my place. And then it'll just like...
Yeah.
and stuff, and you can tell
Shit
like
happens.
she's glancing down. So in my opinion, she probably looks down, sees like the information for like the next paragraph or so, and then like looks at the camera. But she's full eye
Yeah.
contact with you while
Yeah.
she's doing it.
Wow.
Yeah, she's amazing. She's really good. And I like that a lot of her videos are only like 20 minutes long, and she goes far and beyond out of her way to do cases that are just like small news stories that were super crazy that like nobody else is talking about, that like you won't hear anywhere else. She'll just be like, yeah, this is one like I heard on the TV and I decided to Google what was going on, and she's like, and it was absolutely bonkers, but like nobody else has ever talked about it. And like all
Right.
and
Well, they don't all make it to a national like news level. That's for
Yeah.
sure. So you
So
really
it's-
some of those you really do have to research.
Yeah, it's really cool. So a lot of the ones she does, like, you just have never heard of. She has covered, like, a few of the big ones and stuff, which is kind of crazy. The last one I watched, or one of the last ones I watched of her is, she found a case that's extremely similar to the movie The Invisible, where the woman is being, like, harassed by her, like, boyfriend in, like, an abusive relationship. And-
Invisible when he's an invisible man?
Yeah, have you seen that one, The
Okay.
Invisible, with the girl from that one crazy show? We read the book on it.
The Handmaid's Tale. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, cuz I think it's the remake of the original Invisible Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's this woman just
Elizabeth
being
Moss.
harassed.
Sorry.
Yes, her.
Yes.
And she's like being harassed and stuff. Well, she covered a case that might as well be like the origin story of it. And
What?
it was just crazy, like this poor woman. And I was like, I had no idea. And like the storyline
Weird.
of the movie and the storyline of like that was so like it followed each other, and you're like, there's no way like that some of that couldn't have been based on it. Like,
And there
Yeah.
is a lot of stalking cases, that's for sure.
yeah, but it was very cool. Yeah, she does amazing videos, so shout out to her, because she's a lot of fun. She's very funny too. And she's
And her
got
name
like
is Bailey.
Bailey Sarian. But you
Okay.
can look up murder mystery makeup.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is the one that Heather was telling me about. My friend
Yeah,
Heather. And
she's
so
got,
that's
like,
cool.
She's above 5 million subscribers now in the last year. She's only been going for like a year and a half, and she's gained like
Wow.
5 million subscribers. Yeah.
Maybe
she's
we
so
should learn to
funny.
do makeup. No.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, by the way, I have basically what Sam said on Supernatural about the Wendigo or the Wendigo.
Yes.
Season 1, episode 2, as you said, which is so funny. It's such an early episode.
Yeah, there's some
He said-
little babies.
Wendigo is a Cree word. It means evil that devours. They're hundreds of years old. Each was once a man, sometimes a Native American, or other times a frontiersman or a miner or a hunter. During some harsh winter, a person finds himself starving, cut off from supplies or help, becomes a cannibal to survive, eating other members of his tribe or camp. Cultures all over the world believe that eating human flesh gives a person certain abilities: speed, strength, immortality. If you eat enough of it over years, you become this less than human thing. You're always hungry.
Very cool.
Yeah, so no, and you covered it very, very well.
I had so much fun. I loved it.
I had, when they talked about the icy heart, the only thing was I was like, had my own stupid anecdote, because it's like they have an icy heart when Scary Movie 3 or whatever it was came out, that like parodies all the Scream movies and stuff like that with Anna Faris in it, and it's like
Yeah.
they basically do the Drew Barrymore scene from the first Scream where like she gets stabbed in the driveway or whatever. Yeah. In the boob, in the chest, exactly. And so in the Scary Movie one, they pull it out and it's her breast implant.
Yes.
But I said, what was that? Her heart of ice? And I was in the movie at the movie theater with my mom watching this movie.
Oh my gosh.
But she explained it to me. It was a breast implant. I was like, I get it now. I was really young.
Oh, okay.
I was
That's
like, I think when that
funny.
came out, I might have been like Rain's age now, or, like 12, 13.
I had never seen any of those movies until the first COVID lockdown, and I watched all 5 of them because they were on Netflix.
I mean, I love Austin Powers, so
Yeah.
I love a good, like, a corny movie if it's funny corny.
Yeah, I like the parody movies of stuff, especially
Oh,
when I like,
totally.
especially like those ones, because I'm like, I know so many of those references because I've watched like so many of the movies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's the classics that started it, like Spinal Tap. Like, come on. Anyway, so,
Yeah, what Canadian cryptids do you have for me now?
I'm just looking at because I did look into a bunch of them that I really found interesting, basically from one website, I was like, good job, website. But I'm just, I'm just skimming my notes on Wendigo, seeing if there's anything you like didn't talk about, because I had one specific encounter from a Cree chief in 1907, and the name you didn't talk about him.
No.
So yeah, there was a guy named Jack Fiddler who apparently was a Cree chief, and I was like, cool, I knew a white lady who's a last name Fiddler.
Yeah.
My
Oh,
mom worked with.
I did run across him, and I almost did a
Mhm.
little thing about it, but I ended up not.
Yeah,
pretty
I
cool.
had found. Yeah, I'd only found like a blog on it. Like, there wasn't like a bunch of news articles, but it said something like him and his brother Joe ended up being charged with about 14 murders.
Yeah.
But the claim was that the victims were actually Wendigo themselves, or basically on their way to becoming Wendigos. So it
Yeah.
was like, yeah, it's kind of like white man comes in, doesn't know what these chiefs are doing, and is like, you just killed these people in cold blood.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of fucked up. In some cases, the chief argued the family had actually already asked for their help with basically mercy killing or euthanizing the afflicted family members. So like he was called for, but yet is getting kind of charged for these murders. So that was definitely messed up, I thought.
Yeah.
Um yeah, and according to the source, it was like the chief, Jack Fiddler, killed himself soon after he was arrested, and his brother Joseph was convicted in spite of testimony that was given in his favor. So in spite of that, the court said that they didn't recognize this practice as a mercy killing, even though the witnesses were saying actually they were in deep pain and they were incurably sick and basically wanted to die, I guess,
Yeah.
for lack of a better word. Yeah.
Well, we're still having like assisted suicide and stuff like that, even in hospitals and from like licensed doctors and stuff. People, we're still like fighting that and the rights for like people to have that. So that's fair
That's
that
right.
back in over 100 years ago, it would have been frowned upon to do something like that because it's still viewed by, I guess, that way by a large percentage of the population still too.
Right. But perhaps if cultures, when they had have mashed together, had been more accepting and tried to learn from one another, they would have been like, oh, I see what you're doing. You're trying to be merciful. You know what I mean? They could
Yeah.
have learned from them, unfortunately. Um, but yeah, so the brother was also sentenced to death, the brother of the chief.
Oh, okay.
And from what I heard, eventually some orders secured his release, but the order didn't come in time. It came too late, 3 days after his actual death in 1909.
Oh, that's awful.
So, yeah. But the new cryptid that I wanted to talk about was one that is actually from my home province of New Brunswick that I've never heard of before I did this research.
Oh, really? That's really cool.
Mm-hmm. It's actually called the Ugwug.
Ugg bug. Okay.
Yeah. So when you said you had a cool name earlier, I was like, is she talking about the Ugwug?
Yeah. Well, I guess it was a cool newspaper article. The tunnel monster of Cabbage Town. I was like, oh yeah.
Right.
Cabbage Town. Sounds awful.
The Ugwug is found in a coastal town. It's St. John, New Brunswick, which is, yeah, on the coast. And it's near what's called the Reversing Falls as well, which is kind of cool. It is where the severe tides cause the river to literally change twice a day.
Oh, really?
I just like talking about Brunswick. No.
I think
Yes,
I've
so-
vaguely heard about that before, but
It could be. Like we said, we got a goddamn big country here.
yeah.
I have mentioned previously on other episodes that the Bay of Fundy, it has the highest tides in the world. I guess what it is, the lesson here is the Atlantic fucking ocean is a bitch. It causes all these dramatic coastlines on the Atlantic coast of Canada, and also like, you know, in the UK and like in the Atlantic coast on the other side. It's crazy. But yeah, so on the Bay of Fundy, which is where St. John is located on New Brunswick. So, you know, you got New Brunswick, you got Nova Scotia, and then like you got the bays in between them and stuff. So it's the Reversing Falls, it kind of flows back upriver from the Bay of Fundy because the tides are so big. It's like, okay, you've got this river or this bay that opens out into the ocean, but the ocean comes in so hard with the tides that it kind of flows back upriver. And that's the only way I know how to describe it.
Oh, okay.
Apparently, it's similar to a tidal bore, which is a similar tidal phenomenon in which the leading edge of the incoming tide forms a wave or waves of water that travels up a river or a narrow bay against the direction of the river or bay's current.
Yeah, so it just gets like overpowered by the incoming water.
Like sea, yeah.
That,
The sea's like, I'm coming, bitch.
Yeah. Because I guess the water flow of like a river, is that based on like incline of like gravity or?
I'm sure it's a multitude of factors, whether it empties into an ocean, a bay, you know, things like that. Yeah, I think it depends.
I'm just
but
sitting
yeah.
here going, do I know how rivers work?
The world is fascinating. Yeah.
Googling, how do
So-
rivers work?
So this is in St. John, New Brunswick. So I know a lot of people get confused in Canada because there's a St. John's in Newfoundland, but this is in St. John, New Brunswick.
Oh, okay, good to know.
Yes, New Brunswick, where I'm from. St. John's, Newfoundland. Newfoundland is the island. It's a complete island. And New Brunswick is the one that's on the mainland. It's connected to Maine, and it's connected to Nova Scotia. Yeah. So these tides help to carve out cliffs in the St. John area, and in these caves there apparently lives a sea monster.
Ooh.
I guess it looks like a seal salmon sort of hybrid.
Oh, okay. Does it have the head of a seal or the head of a salmon?
Absolutely no idea.
Okay. I'm gonna picture the head of a seal because that's much cuter than the head of a salmon.
I love seals. They are my favorite animal, and then pigs, and then I don't know what, but I love seals.
They're pretty cute.
They're cute. I started watching one of those YouTube things where it's like an ocean conservatory YouTube, and they'll like rescue the little seals. Yeah, things that get trapped around their necks. It's not always like bottle things, you know, like people think, but it's like fishing nets and stuff.
That's
But the poor seals.
the biggest like sea waste and like garbage and everything is all like the torn up and like disposed of fish nets.
Right, and we sit at home like cutting up our Coke bottle can holders because we're like, oh, we don't want to. And it's like, when is your garbage gonna end up in the sea? Like, unfortunately, it's other things that are clogging up the big plastic thing in the ocean,
Yeah,
whatever it's
a
called.
lot too.
Ugh.
And then we're sitting
Yeah.
here like, I have to stop using plastic straws because of the turtles. But you're like, the fucking fisherman's nets.
It's true.
Like,
Oh. Anyway. So I was gonna say, actually, some of what I learned from that is the problem now is there's fish that they wouldn't normally eat that have really pointy defense mechanisms on their neck that are like these big pointy like knives almost, and the seals wouldn't normally eat them, but they're so like starving right now that they do start to eat them, and so some of the times that's what they're saving them from is like something's like jutting out of their neck, and it was like a pointy thing that they ate. I know, it kills me. Why do I watch these things?
there was
But
one
I want to
too.
know. You
was
have to know
telling-
about the bad things.
Yeah, I was telling John about it that there's I think it's sea turtles or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was, but they have kind of like a thing that like whales have where they just like open their mouth and like swallow everything and then they like throw
Okay.
up the seawater. and
Like
stuff.
baleen, where it's just gonna
Yeah.
take in all the krill and stuff, and like they don't
Yeah.
really chew. It's not like teeth. Yeah.
So they like
Mhm.
throw up whatever's left, and then they have like all these like protrusions in their throat that
Oh.
when stuff goes down their throat, it like passes through it, but it can't come back up. It's because it hits the spikes, but the water just throws up back up.
Oh no.
But because of all the garbage and everything, the garbage now, when they open their mouth and like swallow everything, the garbage gets stuck, and then they can't throw the garbage up because it gets trapped, and then their stomachs literally just fill up with undigestible garbage, and then they physically can't eat and they die.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
it's heartbreaking. Because
Oh,
people
there's
online
so
kept sharing all
many
these
ways.
videos
Yeah.
and pictures of turtles like laying on the beach, and it looked like the turtle was like surrounded by blood and they had like vomited up blood, and then people were
Oh.
and they're just like, this looks awful, and then people are commenting, no, it's actually like most of the time it's just blood from the fish and the seawater that they just threw up and it's fine. And then somebody below that commented and was like, actually sometimes it's they're like lying on the beach starving because their stomach is like physically full of garbage and they have no way to like eject it anymore, and they can't, and their stomach just fills up with garbage,
Right.
and then they can't consume any food because they have no room.
Because humans are garbage, and we do nothing to really help the planet as animals, but we do everything to hurt the planet, and it's
Yeah.
fucking shitty. Ugh.
Anyway,
Have we brought everyone the depressive episode tonight without letting them know? Cryptids. It's gonna be a hard-hitting episode, let me tell you.
save the cryptids.
Save the fucking cryptids and the seals! Don't get me started on the walruses again. I don't know if I talked about that before.
No, I don't
But
think
there's there's so many bad things happening because animals' environments have been affected, and it's shitty. It's really shitty. Ugh.
Tell me about
Anyway,
this sea monster in New Brunswick.
it is the only thing funny about this one is that like I said, it apparently looks like a seal salmon hybrid, and that made me scream loose seal, because if you watch
Arrested Development.
yeah,
Lucille.
the mother's name is
Yeah.
Lucille, and there's a whole running joke.
Oh,
There's a
yeah.
loose seal that it
Bit
bites off
Buster's hand.
Buster's hand. It's one of the son's hands.
Yes.
It's like Community. It has those like jokes that are like long running payoffs after a few episodes. It's
Yeah.
really good. It's really good.
I like those. It makes me laugh. The one episode where every single one of the
Hilarious.
characters at some point had made a promise to take a kid or somebody else to that one cabin, and then they're shown sitting on the step when
Oh.
somebody shows up and goes, change of plans. And they always kept saying, it was the worst when that happened to me. And then 5 seconds later, they're shown doing it to one of the other family members. Every single one of them. Was so funny. Oh.
Maladjusted families. I mean, this
Yeah.
is my TV. It's like I love whenever like Will Arnett looks at the camera and says, "I have made a huge mistake."
Yes. Ugh.
But anyway, after Lucille, this seal salmon hybrid is up to 30 meters or 98 feet in length.
Oh my gosh.
That is a long brother. This is the Ugwug, apparently. If we've forgotten, because we've gone on one of our mini tangents.
Yes.
But
4 tangents have occurred.
This episode is tangent heavy, y'all. So, we haven't talked to each other in a while, okay?
Yeah.
Jeez.
It's been like a week since we recorded. Over a
Yeah.
week, because we were waiting
Yeah.
for us to both have our mics, because we wanted
That's
the audio
true.
to sound the best, so we've been saving up.
That's
saving
true.
up all of our stories.
You can't really fault us. Come on now. So, according to one Reddit user, natives used to believe there was a monster living in the Reversing Falls, making the weird waves and bubbles. They would get out of their canoes and walk on foot. So there's always a lot about people being like, I don't want my canoe fucked up. I'm going to do whatever I can to keep it safe. Another story was about a diver who supposedly went in and came back out with hair completely white when he had seen the creature, and then he died.
Ooh,
I don't know anything else.
that reminds me of the one Supernatural episode where people were getting scared to death and their hair was turning white.
Oh, yes. I don't remember what season, but that sounds very familiar because I have seen them all. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it when, like, Dean turns old or, like, Dean turns into a dog. Like, come on, guys. Is that not enough to make you want to watch it if you haven't seen it?
Yeah.
He turns into a dog and he's like, Postman! Hello! Hello! What? What? What are you doing? Get out! Get out!
I remember that now. That was funny.
Okay. One guy said he and his friends were down there one night, and a guy was fishing and pulling up huge eels and possibly weird red fish. So, maybe there's weird fish there, but that is the only possible other explanation I could find.
Oh, okay.
Other than this Ugwug water cryptid that lives in the watery cliffs of St. John, New Brunswick. Oh, and somehow I ended up covering quickly another lake monster, because there's just apparently so many. It has no known nickname, probably because it's from Lake Utopia, so I don't know what the hell you would call it. Lake Uessie. Essie. Her name is Utessie.
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 We've named
So
it.
Jack Kelson grew up near the lake, said his grandpa always talked about this sea monster, even though it's not really in the sea, it's a lake monster. But one year, when he was about 13 and fishing with his dad off the coast of Cannonball Island, his dad pointed something out. There it is, his dad said, and when Jack looked, he says, you could see the big black rolls of the thing going up like that.
The humps. Those lovely lady humps. Check it out.
Oh, I forget. Now I remember why I picked this one, because it's in New Brunswick, but apparently I missed it when I did my lake monsters.
Oh, okay.
Yes, because the next bullet I have says, the lake connects to Macadavic River, but what I love is Macadavic must be a Native American term because it's spelled Magaguadavic.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So it's one of those things that before, like, if locals aren't there, people will pronounce it super wrong, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, here sightings go back to the 1800s, but many still believe it's probably just eels.
Interesting.
Ugh, eels.
Yeah,
I don't know,
eels are gross. Anyway.
I know, but we don't seem to know too much about them. Like, from what I seem to have heard from different podcasts, is that we don't really know how they mate and reproduce. And I was like, what? Are they just, like, alien to us? Oh, guess what? Never looked up what this one was pronounced like. Not sure that I will be able to. It's one of those stupid words.
I know.
It's even spelled different.
I had a hard time
different
looking
places.
up mine pronunciation-wise. I kept being like, okay, this is like a First Nations word. I'm gonna look up how they pronounce it, not like how
Ooh.
us white people pronounce it. Because I'd get something and be like, that sounds like Siri's trying to pronounce it to me right now.
I am a robot.
Yeah, it was like a robot voice, like reading a text message, being like, I'm just gonna sound this word out. And I'd be like, I don't think that's how you're supposed to say it.
I'm gonna also guess because, well, I don't know. Apparently, Google pronunciation says this is the Slough. The Slough. Slaugh. I've heard of like a slaw with like maybe an
Coleslaw?
like no.
The
It's
slaw?
spelled sort of like this, but with an O instead of the A. It's like, it was just like a place where they had like really long grasses and stuff. Like, in I'm sure I was reading Little House in the Prairie, so
Oh, okay.
it's places that are similar to where we live now on a prairie, but like with big long grasses that weren't cut, and so sometimes you'd be like, oh, don't lose the little kid in the slough. On Prince Edward Island, there is a legend of a cloud of blackbirds. A cloud. Apparently, a cloud is the proper name, or a cluster, or a grind.
A grind. Oh, that's weird. Is this the Alfred Hitchcock, The Birds?
A grind of blackbirds getting it on in a club. Yeah. So it is believed that the slough, or whatever they're called, carry people to their death. They will snatch people walking home alone at night or grab you out of your bed and take you out through the window.
Ew, that's creepy.
Right? So be afraid of them everywhere. Oh, also, each bird is believed to be the physical manifestation of the soul of a sinner. So, I'll get into that just a few sentences a little bit more of the possible origin of that. So some never return when they're carried off, but those that do report coming to like kilometers away in confusion. So it's almost like they were abducted or something. They lose time and they're miles away.
Very interesting. Okay.
The name Slaw, or whatever I decided to call it, comes from the Scottish Gaelic, possibly, hopefully, correct me please, which is likely due to the Scottish families that settled in the region. I mean, it's really just a ferry ride away from Nova Scotia, which is Latin for New Scotland. Which honestly, like growing up in the Maritimes, it wasn't like you felt like, oh, everyone from Nova Scotia like is Scottish, but like it is a pretty heavily influenced background, really, when you come to think of it.
Yeah, that's fair. I didn't really know that before.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. My mom and dad were families were mostly from New Brunswick, but we have Scottish in our background as well as Irish, French, German, English, that kind of thing. Yeah. So the Slough, or whatever, were said to be a host of souls that were too sinful to go anywhere else, so they fly around, never allowed to set foot on the ground. So they were too sinful almost for purgatory or anything.
Okay, so they're kind of like punished if they're not allowed to, like, land.
Yeah, I think it's almost like that fairy-ish legend, like oh my god, I forget now, but the Hallowed Hunt or the Forbidden Hunt or something.
Yeah, do they take away, if they're being like punished by that kind of, it seems, do they take away, like, what kind of people do they take away? Just anybody, or do they take away other sinners too?
Preferred sinners or weak-minded, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then if they had to do with like a full-spirited, full-bodied, strong person, they would, but they did not want that as their first target.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so apparently, see, again, I don't know how to say it, but slough or slaw is Celtic for host. They were believed to hang around the houses of the dying, waiting to pick them off once they passed. Should a window be cracked open or a door left ajar, they will flit in and pluck the person's soul from their bodies and walk away.
Ooh.
I picture it, they would suck the soul out Dementor style.
I was just gonna say Dementor. Yeah.
Yes.
That's very creepy.
That's probably what she got the inspiration from. I mean, like, she's British, right? J.K.
Yeah.
Rowling. Yeah.
That's true, because they float. They don't land on the ground.
Okay, so the Slough, or whatever we're talking about, if they could not find a weak or dying soul, then they would turn to hunting the living. Same way,
Ooh.
I think that the Wendigo we just talked about, if they were, like, couldn't find a weak one, then they maybe would prey on a full-blooded one, but they would prefer the weak.
Yeah, well, like the boy, they sent him out to get food because the boy wasn't fat enough.
Exactly. Cut his hand! His hand must be fat!
Yeah, this boy's got some chubby hands.
So anyone walking alone at night is vulnerable to the slough. These bird-like creatures have long, slender fingers and cloaks like leathery wings. They make rasping, sucking noises and carry a stench of rotten meat. They sound a lot like the Wendigo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very similar.
Very gross. This one I also hadn't heard of. They're called the Adlet. 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 An Inuit legend of a woman who did not want to marry any of the suitors her father chose would evolve into she married a large white dog with red spots, and they had 10 children.
What?
5 were human. Yes. And 5 were Adlet, dog creatures that walk upright. You don't know about these things? Come on. No.
I thought this was going the direction of La Llorona when you said she didn't want to get married or whatever, and I'm like, ooh, I'm pretty sure the legend of La Llorona.
She's like, I want to be alive. I will have sex with whatever it takes to make sure my children are alive.
So weird. I wouldn't choose a
mean-
dog.
Well, depending on what your choices are, come on. You would do what you had to do. Okay, so what did I say? So, yeah, she had 5 human kids and 5 that were Adlet, dog things that walked upright. Her father tried to have these abominations killed, so she sent them farther inland for their safety. Which, upon that, they became a tribe of cannibals who were vicious, bloodthirsty, and very skilled at walking on the top of the snow. Which I think was similar to the Wendigo, actually, from what I read in my notes. They're, like, able to walk on the top crust of snow without falling down, like...
Oh, probably because they're so thin. That's so creepy. Right?
It still seems like anti-gravity. It's like someone being able to walk on water. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, there was something called the Loup-garou, which in 1766, rather, and 1767, was in Quebec City, where they were terrorized by a creature who was violently attacking citizens. The legend goes that a beggar came to town and transformed into a wolf-like creature. The French residents started calling him the loup-garou, a specific type of werewolf that is known in folklore, not folklore. I'm sorry. This is my mouth getting dry. Folklore to be cursed with lycanthropy for their sins against God and man. So I assume it means they were made into a werewolf because of their bad deeds, I guess. It's different
Yeah.
than what I've heard. Yeah.
I've only ever heard, like, the whole thing about, like, the full moons and people getting bit, and that's how they become, like, the werewolf.
Right. The traditional lore, exactly. Yeah, I don't know if this is like a French werewolf, but it does seem a little bit specific. So they're known to be cursed with lycanthropy for their own sins. Also, I forget exactly what it means, but loup-garou, like loup means a wolf in French.
But the loup-garou can turn into a wolf, pig, cat, or owl. So he is a shapeshifter of some sort. Yeah, that can transform into at least 4 different animals.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's like traditional werewolves, they can be killed with a silver bullet, but also by hanging or beheading. And
Interesting.
it would be kind of cool to be a cat, I think.
Yeah, that would be a cat or an owl would be like my go-to.
Yeah, owl would be cool.
An owl always, because when given the opportunity to fly and be able to fly, I will take that.
Yeah. This is like Animorphs. No.
Yeah.
Okay, so I also have a little bit about a creature called the Wahila, who is a giant dog cryptid who lives in the Northwest Territories, specifically in the Nahanni Valley. So it is a very remote place, because obviously that's very north in Canada to those of us that live in Canada.
Okay. I think
Go fig.
vaguely
Yeah.
stumbled upon this one, like just when I was looking up lists of cryptids in Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
It looks cool.
the valley sounds familiar, and then the name kind of sounds familiar.
Right, and it looks like a wolf from what I understand. It
Yeah.
says it's known as the Valley of the Headless Men. And the
Oh.
Wahila, yes, the cryptid might be the reason for that. It's wolf-like in appearance. This Wahila, he has a strangely flat head that is longer than a typical wolf. It has a long bushy tail as well, and is about the size of a polar bear.
Oh my god.
Also is terrifying, they are scavengers and apparently live in packs of 3 or 4.
Okay, that's kind of interesting. You don't
It's
hear
like-
about like too many cryptids in packs, I don't think.
No, exactly. It's like people have their sightings and they usually see one at a time.
Yeah.
It is said they behead the victims before consuming their flesh, and this was the fate of some gold prospectors in the 1800s.
Gross. The Valley of the Headless Men just sounds horrible.
It's gross. But yeah, it has to do with the Wendigo, and honestly, we covered that. Like, you covered that really well. The Wendigo is creepy. I think that's all the time we have today for Castles and Cryptids.
Yeah. As we mentioned before, we're looking for some listener stories. So if you have like anything really, got a cryptid
Anything.
sighting, got a true crime story, ghost story, whatever you have that you think we would like, you can send it or message us on social media. And you can email us at castlesandcryptids@gmail.com. Include your name and your story. You can also submit questions. We're wanting to do like an Ask Us Anything kind of thing. So if you have a question for
Yeah,
us,
that'll be fun.
yeah, social media again or email. However you listen to our podcast, please rate us, review us, and subscribe if you haven't already. And
Rate and review. You know what to do. But
Yeah.
also, stories. Oh, I love them. They're so
Yes.
fun.
yeah,
Yes.
we want a
All right.
bunch of them, so send us all of them and we'll fit it in somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Especially if we haven't had any listener stories and you're the first one. Guess
Yeah.
what? You're going to be featured right away.
Yeah. Of course you will.
Hell yeah.
And- Yeah, our next episode is a true crime one. It's gonna be, I think, pretty fun. I chose only cases I thought were pretty funny. And it's all about petty crimes, misdemeanors.
Ah.
Yeah.
Yes, that I'm excited for.
Yeah, I also had fun researching that one. I found some, I don't know, stupid things people stole. Um, where you're just like, really? That's what you decided to do? Yeah.
Come on, buddy. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm excited for that one too. So
Yeah.
we'll close this one out, and yeah, I will be so excited to catch you next time.
Yes. Thanks
All
for
right.
listening.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. This has been Castles and Cryptids. You can listen to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Anchor, Breaker, Pocket Cast, and our YouTube channel. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Reddit. On our website, you can listen to all of our episodes as well as view pictures for each of our segments. Check out our Patreon page to view all of our tiers and become a Patreon supporter today to unlock monthly bonus episodes and behind-the-scenes content. We are working on an Ask Us Anything. You can submit questions by social media or by email at castlesandcryptids@gmail.com. Do you have a spooky ghost story, a creepy cryptid sighting, or a thrilling true crime tale you would like to share and have us include in a future episode? Send us your listener story by social media or by email. Please include the name that you would like mentioned. Our music is by Kobe Fair. Our logo and artwork is by Antonio Garcia. Thanks for listening.